Hello and welcome to the Astrology Forecast. My name is Sage, here as your eye into the sky, letting you know what the cosmic events are for the week, why they matter, and how you can use this information in your everyday life. I want to find out what came up for us this past week as Saturn went retrograde. Now, as I'm recording this, it just went retrograde, so hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you've had a couple days to kind of take in your experience. Now again, this might not be super obvious right away, but if you go back to last week's forecast, I did do a whole discussion about Saturn going retrograde in Pisces. If you're not sure where Pisces is in your chart, you do have the opportunity to also go back and find that out this week because we actually have another planet going retrograde in Pisces. So it's really important to know where this is in your chart. Now it's interesting. I did mention that anything that was happening for us back in November, like October, November of last year, 2023, it's likely that we are kind of having to revisit or go back over those things that maybe started up around that time. Quick, very small example, but I just think it's so fun to share when astrology comes up real life in real time. I started to get my nails done back in November. I was getting like the gel, the tips, ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Love them, absolutely love them. But of course, we want to make sure that our nails have time to breathe from time to time. Anyway, literally just got them off yesterday, which was the exact day that Saturn went retrograde. And it's like me having to go back and remember what it was like not to have my nails done and to just allow my nails to breathe. And it's again kind of a 6-month cycle, that time when Saturn was direct from November until basically now. We were in a cycle of time, a period of time. Now that has ended and we're shifting to a retrograde, which is a whole new cycle that'll last until November. And so just pointing this out, if anybody else has some interesting things that maybe started for you around November and now right around this time, you're like, wait, that just came back up for me in some way. I can name at least 2 other examples. One of them is actually Shane's example, so I won't share his, but it's so accurate. It's almost like creepy. And then I have another one as well, but I'm not going to share that one because it's a little more personal. However, check out your chart, check out what this was for you. Now, like I mentioned, this week we do have I'd say a lot of water energy coming in. We do have a fiery kind of spark starting up because Mercury will be shifting into Leo this week. And we have a really positive new moon in Cancer. So make sure you stay tuned to the end of this forecast because the new moon in Cancer is definitely one of the most positive things that I will be discussing, and I'm really looking forward to it. So you want to know this information so you can look forward to it too. And then of course, last but not least, if you are a Cancer and you're celebrating a birthday, or maybe you have somebody in your life that's a Cancer that you would like to gift them a solar return reading. Now this is 50% off. If you follow me on Instagram, I actually just did a whole story about this, explaining what a solar return is. I even shared a little bit about my own solar return that I'm experiencing right now, as all of us are, right? Because everybody has a solar return chart that's being activated upon you, whether or not you're aware of it. So really, the gift of a solar return chart reading is awareness and preparation, because often we do these readings around the time of your birthday, which is when a new chart takes effect. And fun fact, your moon sign and your rising sign will more than likely shift each and every year. It doesn't take over from your birth chart. You always have a birth chart and you always have your big 3, but every year we do get a bit of a filter or a flavor that kind of characterizes that year. We can see that in the solar return chart, and that's such a fun reading to do. It's like looking into a crystal ball and seeing what you can expect for the next 12 months ahead. Only in effect for 1 year. It's a very temporary chart, but super fun to look at, and it's 50% off. I do offer gift certificates. If you have a loved one that you would like to gift them this reading, what a fun birthday gift to receive. And they do get a full, whoever it is, gets a full PDF. So I will create for you a PDF. It goes in depth on everything that we'll discuss and everything you can look forward to for this upcoming year. So again, if you're interested in that, the link is below to book one for yourself. If you're interested in getting a gift certificate and buying this for somebody else, gifting this to a loved one, message me. If you have my phone number, go ahead and message me, or my Instagram, which again, the link is down below. So you can get connected to my Instagram and can message me through there, and I'll be sure to get you a gift certificate so that way you can gift this to somebody special in your life. And with all that to be said, let's dive into this week. We are looking at the signs of Pisces, Cancer, and Leo. So make sure those 3 signs, you're aware of where they are in your birth chart. What house do you have Pisces in? What house do you have Cancer in? And what house is Leo in? We're about to dive into the Leo house right now. And before we do, again, please make sure that you've already subscribed. I know a lot of you already have, but if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you tap that subscribe button. If you want to stay up to date, that notification bell will let you know each and every week when I post a forecast. It's only one a week, so you won't get too many notifications. And as always, feel free to comment. I would love to get some feedback on what you're experiencing in correlation with what we're sharing for each and every week and the events that's going on. So all that to say, let's dive into what's going on for this week. All right, so let's dive into the first week of July, which, by the way, July happens to be a pretty smooth sailing month. I'm happy to report July is pretty okay. There's a couple of things, of course, every single month has their fair share, but to be honest, July is actually a nicer astrological month than other ones. So some positive news to start out. Now, starting off the week, on Tuesday, July 2nd, we actually have 2 major cosmic events going on. We're going to start with the first one being Mercury entering into Leo. Now, Mercury has been in Cancer since June 17th. I always want to take a moment to just pause and really honestly encourage you to reflect, like, what was going on for you in the Cancer part of your chart, okay? Make sure you know where this is. If you don't, it's okay. You can still kind of look at the overall vibe, but it's helpful to know. And see, was your mind really preoccupied with these sorts of things? We can look at world events and see, was this showing up for us then? Are we seeing it portrayed in the news? Mercury in Cancer was a very emotional expression for Mercury. Mercury being the planet of our communication, our thoughts, our speech. It's interesting, I'm not political at all, but Donald Trump actually has Mercury in Cancer. And of course, I know a lot of people just saw the debate. And funny enough, I know that, again, I'm not into politics at all. To be honest, I could care less besides looking at their birth chart and seeing how it shows up. But it's interesting that while Mercury was in Cancer, we had this debate. His Mercury was in Cancer. And regardless of what you feel on what they each said politically, I think a lot of the consensus was that Trump was better spoken, meaning that he had an easier time physically getting the words out than Biden did. And again, this is not to say I side with either one. I don't care. But if you look at the astrology, it seemed like Biden, sometimes his words were almost underwater. And he actually has a Mercury in Scorpio, whereas Trump's Mercury in Cancer, he was experiencing a Mercury return, so to speak, since Mercury was in Cancer, which just sort of helped his communication a little bit. Not necessarily the ideas that he was speaking and the rhetoric that he was spewing, but more so just his ability to physically get the words out. He seemed a little bit easier, more capable in doing so. So just a quick anecdote on that. But check out your own chart. Check out where this was happening for you. Mercury in Cancer. For me, I'll give a quick example. I actually have Cancer in my 12th house, which is all about solitude and dreams and even meditation. And interestingly enough, on the day, on the 17th of June, that Mercury entered this house of mine, this area of my chart, I decided to start meditating. And I've actually been very consistent. I always have meditated, but not as consistently all the time. And just recently on the 17th, I'm like, you know what? I need to get more focused on my routine. And that starts with my spiritual routine of meditating. Started meditating, and it has been amazing, of course, as we know it is. But the funniest part is that I started this right when Mercury, the planet of communication, thoughts, ideas, enters into the place of my chart that deals over meditation and sleep and all those more spiritual, subconscious, quieter parts of ourselves. I was communicating with those parts, which of course, there's no coincidences. So you might look at your own chart and say, oh my God, like that, I couldn't believe that actually showed up the way it did. So looking ahead now, we've got Mercury entering into Leo. Leo being a fire sign, and this is going to take the energy from very slow and emotional and thoughtful and meaningful, and let me really speak with some heart and some, emotion behind it. Suddenly that becomes way more, what's the word? Dramatized? Dramatized, I think that is it. Dramatized. And all of a sudden we've got this huge Leo spark, which of course Leo is a fire sign. And it is the sign of celebrity, right? It's a very, very bright, very leadership oriented energy, but also one that is so incredibly expressive and creative. And so while Mercury is in Leo, we can definitely look forward to bolder communication. If there's something that needs to be said, it's likely that when Mercury is in Leo, we're gonna speak it. We're gonna speak our mind. It might not be as brutally honest as the other fire signs, as Leo cares more about image and reputation. And so, of course, with Leo energy, we don't necessarily want to be so blunt as we would be with, let's say, either Aries or Sagittarius. Leo does care a little bit more about presentation. And with that being said, we might feel way more dramatic in the way that we present our ideas to other people. Great time for storytelling, acting, any type of performance. I can visualize like slam poetry, those things where you're boldly expressing from a place of authenticity, which is what Leo really emanates, right? Leo is the sign of the sun. It's all about taking that authentic, genuine core self and finding a way to express that out to the world, right? It's like the sun's rays are just shining their light when Mercury's in Leo. And what are your rays shining in terms of like what information are you giving out? What words are you sharing with people? Are you complimenting? Are you giving words of affirmation? Are you speaking life over people? If we think about Leo being the sign of the sun is the ruler of Leo. The sun is light, right? So speak light, speak life. As we know, light is life, right? Light is consciousness. Consciousness is life here on earth. So speaking life over people, right? And not only others, but even yourself. Really, really, really important. We might feel more confident during this time. Great opportunity to, again, do any type of public speaking. If you've got some public speaking or even like making content, that's still very nerve wracking for people. I know when I first began my journey behind the camera, it was new, it wasn't super comfortable. I am a Leo rising, so I'm not gonna lie, it came a little bit more naturally for me. But I've also worked with people, one on one, even in mentorship roles where it's not as easy. So trust me, my Pisces moon can understand and empathize that it's not always easy to get in front of the camera. So it could be, making content, it could be getting up on a stage, or even just getting up in front of a room, or even just standing in front of that person who makes you nervous and boldly, confidently expressing your truth. Right, that's the beautiful side here. When Mercury enters Leo on the 2nd of July, it will immediately form this very intense opposition with Pluto. Now, Pluto being all about death and transformation and power and control, and even a sense of paranoia and obsession. All of these themes could come up during this time. Now, granted, it's only a couple days. So really, by the time we even start to feel this energy, it might show up in one or two instances, and then it should dissipate as Mercury will move into a sextile with Jupiter, and things will be really happy, really positive. So ultimately, Mercury in Leo is really fun. It's a really great opportunity to get in touch with that side of yourself that just wants to say how you feel to the world. It's like that lion's roar coming through, and who doesn't want to? Basically, who's gonna miss a lion's roar? I don't know if you want to hear it, because I don't know what that implies. Maybe you're too close to the lion, but you certainly won't miss it. And that's the point here. With Mercury being in Leo, it's very, very spotlight energy, main character energy. And again, look at where it shows up in your birth chart, because that'll tell you what area of your life you're thinking about, you're talking about. Again, using myself as an example, Leo rising, you're talking about yourself. Now, I do want to make that clear, because that is something that could happen with Mercury and Leo, is we might get very self-absorbed. So just be conscious of sharing the air during this time. It's easy, easy, easy to interrupt, to say how you think, to basically talk more than we listen. We know we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. And sometimes the Mercury in Leo can forget that. So let's just remind ourselves to keep an equal balance in conversation during the time that Mercury is in Leo. And of course, check out where it is in your chart to see where your mind is going to be on for the next few weeks. Mercury will be in Leo until July 25th, and then it'll move into Virgo, where it'll actually retrograde back into Leo. So by August, I believe 14th, somewhere around there, middle of August, Mercury will actually move back into Leo during its retrograde. So keep in mind that many of the things that you experience between July 2nd and July 25th, you may actually be revisiting come middle to end of August. So just prepare yourself if you know you've got something going on around that time in August. start to think about the way you approach those matters now, because you're going to revisit it. So basically, set your future self up for success. So when you do revisit the things that you're dealing with now, thinking about now, talking about now, all these mercurial things, you're happy with what you're revisiting, basically. So Mercury in Leo, July 2nd to July 25th. Check out where it is in your chart and see where this is showing up for you. All right, so moving into the second cosmic event happening also on Tuesday, July 2nd, Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one as it is a long-term transit. This will be in effect all the way until December 7th. So we do have a stretch of time of Neptune being retrograde. So it's not going to show up immediately in our birth chart, such as, let's say, Mercury, being so close to us, we feel the effects of those closer, what we call inner planets, versus Neptune being so far out into the solar system. We feel it, but we can see it more on a collective level, and over time, we can start to see the themes of it showing up in our own life. Now, Neptune is the planet of spirituality, creativity. It deals with all things illusory, right? So Neptune is all the things that kind of hide behind the fog, the mist. It's a sense of mystery and fantasy put together. So Neptune can involve anything from, drinking, drugs, and intoxication to spirituality and meditation and almost out of body experiences. Dreams, anything that takes us out of our conscious thinking mind, those are all Neptunian topics. Now, Neptune going retrograde in Pisces. Neptune's been in Pisces, by the way, since like 2011, 2012. It's actually only has about, I think, 9 months or so left of its time in Pisces, which it'll be fun to look back. 2025, we're going to be looking back over Neptune's time in Pisces, which happens to be the sign that Neptune modernly rules over. And again, Neptune is such a slow moving planet that we will never in our lifetimes, no matter what age you are listening to this, we will never see Neptune again in Pisces in our lifetime. So this stretch of time between 2011, 2012, and basically next year is definitely historic in a lot of ways. And again, that's for another date, another conversation next year. But I do want to make it clear because we've experienced Neptune retrogrades in Pisces for like 10 years. So this is nothing new, and it does happen for a while. It's a good 5-6 months. So in this case, like I said, December 7th is when it'll go direct. So it's not going to be an overnight energy such as like a Mercury retrograde, which is like 3 weeks. Way, way, way different, especially in terms of its potency. Now, when Neptune does go retrograde, it's likely that we will be revisiting and relooking all those retrograde things, right? We're going to be kind of reflecting on all the creative projects in our life, everything that takes us out of ourselves and puts us in that flow state, whether that be reading, writing, poetry, creativity, drawing, painting, dancing, singing. Like there can be an array of creative self-expression tactics, tools, modes of expression that you use. You guys, you follow me, hopefully. I'm kind of mumbling my words here. But my point is I guess that's kind of a Neptune thing, is that we're basically looking at the creative components of oneself. This is the spiritual side of ourself. This is the side of us that loves to be taken out of the conscious thinking mind and placed into some sort of either fantasy or illusion in a sense, which can be good or bad, to, kind of give us that feeling of being in a new world, so to speak. Now, we might be reflecting on the worlds that we create for ourselves, which is a very broad way of saying what takes you out of yourself. What is it that you feel like puts you in that creative state, that creative flow state? This might be what you find yourself revisiting. We might notice collectively this looks like other or newer or even older styles coming in. So like older fashion styles might pop up. We might notice that different trends appear from maybe 6 months ago that we kind of left behind. They kind of pop back up, or maybe we were revisiting them and we're looking at them and thinking, I don't know why this was a good idea. That might show up a lot, especially through social media. We might see that. So the closest thing I would say to understanding Neptune's retrograde on a personal note is to check it out in your chart. This is really where I would recommend consulting with a professional astrologer, whether that be myself or somebody else that you trust, only because whenever we have these outer planets moving and doing certain things, we likely won't feel the effects of it as much unless it's affecting one of our personal planets in our chart. And this is really where a trained astrologer can look and see which of your personal planets are getting activated by Neptune's retrograde motion, and how is that likely to show up for you in what areas of life and for how long. Again, these are all tactics and techniques that trained astrologers can utilize. If you're not familiar, if you're more on that beginner level, I would recommend, if you want to understand more about Neptune and the Pisces part of your chart, as it's getting a lot of retrograde, check with an astrologer. And I say that because not only is Neptune retrograde, but Saturn, like I mentioned at the beginning, is also retrograde. And that Saturn retrograde paired with the Neptune retrograde, it's interesting. These two planets are now coming close to a conjunction. And in fact, they're actually just beginning to activate that conjunction, which means we're blending the energy of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. This is like realism meets idealism, science meets spirituality, science being Saturn and spirituality being Neptune. Neptune is all about idealism and fantasy, and Saturn's all about realism. And so, how does this show up in our world and in our life? Where do we see this kind of duality coming through? And how do we work with it? That's the biggest thing. Do we lean into the Piscean qualities that Neptune is really, really exacerbating and just lean into that sense of fantasy and ignore the reality? Or do we tap into the reality checks that we're getting through Saturn's movement here and thinking on what we can do to make our dreams more realistic? So this could be a big theme that we see showing up, not just now, but that idea of how to bridge our dreams with our fantasy, with our desires that might not exist right now in this reality. That might be something that shows up for us over the next 6 months between now and December. So start to just take note. And again, knowing where this is showing up in your chart will help you out even more. But again, even looking on a collective level, how might this show up in society where, we might be battling between the scientific discoveries and, technology and AI and spirituality and human connection and that real humanness that we might be losing as a result of science and technology. So this could show up even more, is my point, over the next 6 months. So just check it out, stay aware, stay open to it, keep your eyes open, and again, check out your own birth chart to get a more in-depth understanding of this retrograde. All right, and finally, on Friday, July 5th, we have a new moon in Cancer. Now, this new moon is honestly really positive. I would recommend looking at where Cancer shows up for you in your chart. If you are a Cancer sun, moon, or rising, this is a really good end of the week and honestly a really good start to the month. Again, new moons start a new lunar cycle, which lasts for 28 days. And so when we have a really positive new moon starting out the lunar cycle, this is some good news and this is really hopeful for the outlook of July. Now, new moon, again, the sun and the moon are both in Cancer. We also have Venus in Cancer at this time, basically hanging out with this new moon. And all of these planets, the sun, moon, and and Venus in Cancer, are all trining Saturn in Pisces. Now, this is a lot of water, which means that we're really getting in touch with our emotions. We're really getting in touch with that connection and that deep, heartfelt energy that really didn't exist when we had the full moon in Capricorn just a few weeks back. Now, what's interesting about the placement of this new moon is it's actually being bookended by two full moons in Capricorn. So we just had a full moon in Capricorn. Now we've got this new moon in Cancer, and then we've got another full moon in Capricorn at the very end of July. So what's cool about this is, it's almost very symbolic of what Cancer's all about. Cancer being this hard outer shell and this very soft and gooey and just like cozy inner shell that anytime you get close to a Cancer, they're so soft, they're so gentle, they're so loving, kind, and compassionate, but there is that hard outer shell, right? There is that sense of guard up and protection. And we feel that where we started this month with the full moon in Capricorn, right? That very hard, cold, not very emotional, oozy goozy, none of that energy at all. And then we end the month with that same sort of, get to business type of full moon in Capricorn. But we have this center, this new moon in Cancer in the middle, which is just all of the emotions and all of the compassion just overflowing basically what we didn't get in these two, or what we don't get in the next one, in these full moons in Capricorn, we're getting it now. So really, this is the best time to tap into your emotions. And not only that, but again, remember, let's get a little bit deeper here. New moons start things, right? They set the intention, they set the tone. This new moon being so close with Venus is making it that our intentions are coming from the heart. They also might involve those that are very close to us. I almost get a motherly energy from this new moon, just because we've got the moon in its home sign in Cancer next to Venus, which is so feminine and so loving and so nurturing. Now, the moon being in its home sign in Cancer is so comfortable. This is a very cozy. I think that's the best word I would use. It's a very cozy new moon, because again, it's the moon finally returning home. It's like if you think about when you go on a long trip, and as much as you enjoy all of the sightseeing and everything that you experience, you finally make your way back home. Kind of like the moon has taken its time to go through the whole zodiac all year until it finally reaches that new moon in Cancer, when it's like, man, I can just relax, put up my feet. I'm finally home, right? So this is the moon's return in a way. Of course, the moon does enter Cancer every single month, but we're talking about a new moon, which in this case, the phase is what makes it so unique, because we've only got one new moon in Cancer every year. And, this is why we really want to utilize this energy. So tap into those heartfelt emotions. What is it that you want to cultivate these next 6 months? Right? Because this is the new moon in Cancer, but it will culminate with the full moon in Cancer on January 13th, 2025, which sounds kind of far away, but it's only 6 months. So really think about what you want to finish this year off with, and what is it that you want to be culminating for you as you begin the new year in 2025. So cool that in astrology we can think this far ahead and work with the cosmic energy, which is really just energy. If you take out the word cosmic, it's all energy, working with the energy at play right now to basically better align yourself with what you desire and the outcomes you wish to see for your own life. So it's like kind of hacking the system, right? And I think that's the coolest thing with astrology. So this new moon, really take into account that number one, you got to tap into that heart space. Number two, this is trining Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces, all about emotion and empathy. But Saturn in Pisces says we need to put some boundaries here, right? We need to be responsible for that which we care for. And that's what this new moon with Saturn's influence is also reminding us. Is this new moon is so nurturing, so cozy. It's like your mom or your grandma or whoever that motherly figure is in your life just wrapping you up in that bear hug, and you just feel so safe and secure and just nurtured, right? It's like that good cup of soup on a cold day. It just feels so warm to the soul. That's what this new moon energy is all about. Now, Saturn's involvement says, yes, you care for this, right? You love this. You want to nurture whatever this is, whether this be a goal of yours, an idea or a dream, whatever that intention is that you're setting on this new moon. Saturn's reminding us that we have to take care of it, that we have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that, yes, while we might love this thing, maybe a plant or a child, let's say, right, if we want to go to the full mother archetype, you still got to feed it, right? If it's a plant, you still got to water it and make sure that it's being turned so it's getting enough sunlight, right? All these things matter when it comes to the things we care for. Care is amazing, but Saturn is actually really beneficial to this new moon, because while the care in Cancer is so abundant with Venus's involvement here, and there's really no bad energy being placed on this new moon. So it's a really warm energy, and it's right after the 4th of July, when everybody's maybe even celebrating with family and setting off fireworks. How fun, right? We just had Mercury enter Leo. We're talking and there's fireworks. It's so fun. And then we've got this Saturn influence that says it is fun. It's so great, but just make sure that if you care about it, you take care of it, right? Like anything else. I know for myself, me and Shane, we've been dealing with our car lately. And it's like, man, if you care about something, you can't just run it into the ground because you just want to use it all the time, right? You've got to take care of it. Same goes for our bodies, our physical health, our mental health, even our spiritual health. Like with myself starting to meditate a couple weeks back with Mercury entering Cancer, I'm like, man, I need to take care of my spiritual health and tap into, charging my own battery, right? And so this is what the new moon is really good for. Charge your emotional battery. Allow Saturn to remind you that emotional intelligence, responsibility, and the duty you have to that which you care for is just as important. tap into that heart space, as I know Venus is going to connect us with that which we love and desire and value, and take those things we value, set beautiful new intentions that you can now nurture, because Cancer is the sign of nurturing. Nurture your new intentions that you set on the new moon and watch how they bloom. Just watch. Because yes, you might think that it takes some time and patience watering and nurturing and cultivating this beautiful plant that all of us are doing every single time we set intentions. But know that this is the time to really make sure that your intentions are meaningful, that they're emotional, that there's that emotional connection to what you desire. Guarantee if you can tap into that, you can get anything you desire. And come January 13th, when we get that culminating full moon in Cancer, you're going to be really thanking yourself that you listened to this forecast and that you did the work now to set those intentions. And just wait, because 2025, they are going to bloom. And with that being said, guys, that wraps us up for this week. A really positive energy this week. A lot of water in the energy, in the air and in the sky and in the overall ether. So really tap into your heart space. Connect with those you love. It's Cancer season. It's the 4th of July. Oh my goodness. It is the United States solar return. It's funny, if you actually look at the United States, we actually have a birth chart for the United States. The United States is a Cancer sun, a Sagittarius rising, and a moon in Aquarius. Really fun. I have actually done a couple different talks about the United States, what's called Sibley chart. Basically, when the United States was and became what it is, right? July 4th, 1776. We can look at that day where all the planets were, and it's so interesting to note how that has played out over the course of our nation's history. So I'll do some more talk about that come Thursday, so make sure you're tuning into my Instagram, where I do keep up to date regularly, pretty much every day, on what's happening in our skies and just reminding us so we can stay up to date as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you got value from this video, make sure you hit the like button, comment, and even reshare this with anybody else that you think can get value from it. If you're a Cancer, if you know and love a Cancer, 50% off solar return readings for all my Cancer babies out there. The link is below. I send you guys so much love. Have a beautiful new moon week, and I will see you all again next Sunday.